Welcome to Season 5, Episode 32 of the Be Conscious podcast. Today I am joined by Dr. Varun Gandhi, the soulpreneur who joins us from Los Angeles, California. I am so curious to have Varun tell us what it means to be a soul entrepreneur and what he is doing to change the world for the better. Here we go.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
Dr. Varun Gandhi is a life orchestrator, a soulpreneur, angel investor, philanthropist, and a water doctor. He enjoys orchestrating businesses, events, and ideas about the self. Now, he is currently creating a digital course called What's Your Story, which allows you to create your life film, a chart consisting of your memories, experiences, and defining moments. He believes that each of these moments have a lesson for you, and that your life film also allows you to create new meaning out of your past experiences in order to create a new future you. Dr. Varun, welcome to the Be Conscious podcast.
Hi, Dr. Susan Nicholas. How are you doing?
Oh, I am well. It is a delight to have you on the Be Conscious podcast today. You have a very interesting background, and I really love understanding the journey of, I guess, what you call a soulpreneur, people that have transitioned from what I would say are more secular careers or life journeys and then find themselves on spiritual paths. Can you help our audience understand what that transition was for you? Like, what was the catalyst for making that change? And what were you doing before you became a soul entrepreneur to help us to understand the story of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Love and abundance, everyone. My journey began in, let's say, when I was working on my PhD. At that time, I was kind of lost in life, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had, in between my bachelor's and my grad school, I had gone for an internship for a couple of months, a summer internship. And during that internship, I was sitting in a cubicle working, Excel sheets, a lot of data, number crunching. I'd also gone on certain field trips out into the field to collect data and samples and things like that. And so I'd done some interesting work. But while I was there for these 2 months, I realized I don't really want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I kind of had this inkling, but then what I did with that is I said, you know what, I'm just going to stay in school longer. So at that point, I was only supposed to go to school for a master's. I said, you know what, I'm just going to prolong it, go for a PhD, and see where things go. So now I'm 5 years into my PhD course, and I'm about to graduate. And the only offer that I get is a job that was similar to that internship, and I take it. Now, I was at that point not really sure what I wanted to do with life, so I was just going with the next thing that came in my life. So I was the classical drifter, just kind of wading through life without any purpose, without any mission, not really, not really fighting for anything. It was, life was easy. I had all of my essentials taken care of, and I was, living a great life, and that was it for me. So about a year into this job, uh, so my whole PhD was in Atlanta, and now I moved to Idaho for this job, Boise, Idaho. I didn't even know Idaho existed until I went there for the interview. So it was one of those situations for me. But when I got there, I really, really enjoyed the city. Now, a few months before this, before I graduated, I had gotten through this a very hard breakup. This was the person that I thought I was going to spend my life with, and all of a sudden is this was no longer happening, and we fell apart, and that took a really really large toll on me, especially in the last few months of my graduation. Really had to focus, but I couldn't because I was dealing with all of this issues in my personal life. Every morning I'd wake up with tears in my eyes, not wanting this reality because I liked the reality that I had previously, and I couldn't
Mm.
come to terms with this new reality at that point. So a few months into it, I was struggling. You know what? I said, I'm going to take this job. All of my memories were in Atlanta with this lady. I wanted to move far away from it. So I took this job in Boise, Idaho. And that kind of represented this move into the darkness, the move into sort of that cave to kind of go deeper into yourself. Now, at this point, I was 32, and I had never, sorry, actually, I was 28, and I'd never really done any kind of self reflection, introspection, kind of understand what's going on inside of me. I wasn't into all of that. Well,
Mhm.
after a lot of this pain and suffering, a year and a half into this, after the breakup, I was fed up with the situation that I was in because I had a lot of pain and suffering, and up until this time, instead of focusing on improving and getting better, by going into that cave, I was distracting myself, doing everything I can to run away from this pain and suffering, and in the process, I was essentially killing myself because I was eating unhealthy food, drinking alcohol, partying a whole lot, not sleeping enough. So it was that whole lifestyle. And about a year and a half into the job, I realized, look, I'm killing myself. I don't want to be feeling like this anymore. I was constantly feeling like this, and this negativity, this pain and suffering is no longer helping me in any which way. It's time for me to do something about it. Now,
Mhm.
simultaneously, in that was my personal life. In my career, I was also feeling something. I was, those thoughts that okay, this is not it for me. There's something else out there. Kind of going back to that internship, like, hey, this is not my whole life. I don't want to be doing this. Now, all of that was surfacing again, and the way it kind of physically manifested for me was this pain in my solar plexus, my stomach region. And this is about a year and a half into this job. I the pain started off mildly, but then over a few months it grew, and finally it was every morning I'd wake up and then bam, it was right there in my face. This pain in my solar plexus, I couldn't do anything about it, and at that time I wasn't really thinking about what to do. But something inside of me, now I was this was my unconscious phase, so something inside of me just said, why don't you sit down with that pain and ask questions and kind of understand what message is there for you?
Mm.
And the thing that came up was purpose. That I wasn't really living my purpose. I wasn't doing anything meaningful. I felt like there was something greater out there for me. And all this while, a whole year and a half into this job, I was justifying this job by saying, look, I'm working with the public health infrastructure. And it really was. I was doing something meaningful, but in the grand scheme of things, maybe I was making like a 0.2% difference, which I felt like, okay, I could be doing more. And so all of these feelings started coming up, surfacing again. And finally, let's say a couple months into having this pain constantly being there, I made the decision that, hey, I am going to leave this career behind. This is not it for me. I did look outside of this job, look for other jobs within that career, but nothing was really exciting. And so now I
Mhm.
had to go through this whole journey of kind of convincing my parents that this was the best decision for me. And so it took me about a month or two to kind of fight with them and get it through to them that I'm not happy with what I'm doing right now, and nothing in this career is going to make me happy. I need to find something else outside of this career that's meaningful and aligned with some sort of purpose. Again, at this point, I didn't really know what that purpose was either. Well,
Mm.
so I left this job, and now at this point, I was basically like open. Like I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in with my life. I was, like an open book. And the one thing that came to me was I moved back to Atlanta at this point. I had friends and family back home, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go back and. Uh, One thing I picked up was meditation. So, personally, in my life, to deal with all of that pain and suffering that I've been going through, I started meditating. And let me tell you, meditation has been such a game changer. We can come to that a little bit later. But that was a very key moment in my life when I picked up meditation.
So, when you were in your PhD, is this part of your career where you say you're the water doctor? Were you studying some aspect of water? Is that what that was?
Yes, that is the phase in my life where I was a water doctor, where I was working with the water infrastructure and understanding how I could improve it. So yeah, that was kind of dealing with cleaning water and making sure that homes have clean water to drink. And
Right.
now that title is kind of morphed into something else, where I read this book called Our Body's Many Cries for Water. And in that book, it says that dehydration is a cause of 40 to 50% of the common diseases that occur in our lives normally. And if you
Mm.
drink enough water, you can remove all of those little pains, those ailments in your lives, those migraines, those headaches, little ulcers, things like that. All of those are the cause of water. And that's what this book kind of talks about. So once I read this book, I said, you know what? I want to make it part of my mission to remind people to drink more water, because just drinking enough water. Now, I'm not saying that there's a set amount of water that everyone needs to drink, because every body is different. I feel some bodies need more water, like mine. Some bodies don't need as much water, like my wife's body. You know, I have a lot of heat inside of me, so because of that, I need more water for my body to function properly.
Hmm.
But my whole reminder is that, hey, drink enough water, because when when we feel dehydrated, usually it's because of the feeling on our lips, and that's one of, dry lips and the sensation in our mouth. That's one of the last sensations of dehydration. I mean, you've been dehydrated for so long, and finally, once it got to your mouth, is when you felt it. And I feel like there are ways, if we're more in tune with ourselves, we can pick up on the signs faster, and drink water before it gets to this dire strait of, oh, I'm completely dehydrated. So that's kind of morphed into that water doctor title now.
Well, I think that's very interesting because when I think about the external paths that we take, I term them the external path of validation.
Mm,
Like we kind of were born into this life and we're conditioned that we have to do something, work basically, find some work that we can survive our embodiment. Like
right,
we have to work to pay bills.
right.
And so we go out and henceforth try to earn some skill, education, degrees, whatnot, so we can earn money to, I believe, survive the embodiment, like pay our bills.
Mm,
I think we are all infected with this on the planet that very rarely, if ever, when we are young people, when we're very formative and we're trying to figure out what we are here to do, try to figure out what inspires us or lights us up. Uh, I think very infrequently are we encouraged to find the spark, like
hmm,
what would bring us happiness or, on a more, I guess, philosophical kind of discussion, what actualizes us, like what brings us to actualization,
right.
where we feel like what I am doing has meaning for me.
Hmm,
It, like you talked about having purpose and having a mission. You're not just, checking boxes or punching in and out so you can earn enough money to survive the embodiment.
right.
And so I think you and I are fortunate in the sense that there was a ping, like you said that feeling. There was something inside of you. I got this inkling
Hmm,
that says something. This isn't it.
hmm,
But I think a caveat to this, Varun, is it's not wrong. Like it's like whatever it is, getting an education, developing skills, developing something in the physical world in your physical self is not wrong. Like all of that was a part that brought you here. Like that brought you to what is your purpose.
right.
Like for whatever is your soul journey,
Hmm,
it was required. This is just what it looked like for you.
right.
And for me, it looked like becoming a heart surgeon.
Mm.
And so each of us has our journey
Mm-hmm.
that brings us back to self, that brings you back to you.
Right.
And so I think what's very interesting is, looking our back on our lives, we feel like we made a big mistake.
Mm.
But I think the way that I don't believe there are necessarily mistakes. I think they're just experiences that we have.
Right.
Like you said, there was a time in your late 20s, early 30s, you did not have the words, the language of consciousness. You weren't thinking about meditation, and
Mm-hmm.
you didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And the same was true for me. I just woke up a little bit later than you did, I think. But the idea is that maybe that's part of the journey as well, that we don't, we're not toddlers, seeking enlightenment. We go through the physical world, this third dimensional experience, to learn of the third dimension. And then there's a shift. And I think everybody feels it, Varun. I think everybody feels the ping.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has, there's so much chronic pain, like you said, the migraines, the diseases, the cancers. I used to have something called angioedema. My trigger was, it would look like autoimmune disease. I
Mm.
would just be swollen all the time. I called it the ugly disease.
Yeah.
And it started when I was a first year medical student.
Wow.
And everyone says, "Oh, that's stress, this, and that." But what it was that early ping,
Mm.
that, not that training as a doctor or going to medical school was wrong, but that wasn't my end game.
Mm.
That I couldn't stay there.
Right.
There was more or different for me to do. Not better, worse, but just different. Whatever was to be my life path, whatever the contract I signed or the blueprint of my life,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, the end game wasn't to be a surgeon, which, as a 10-year-old girl deciding that I want to be a doctor, I believed being a doctor was the end game. I get this degree, I get these credentials, I get my training, I work, I do this type of work, and voila, there it is. It's like the holy grail. I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I'm actualized.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't turn out that way for me either.
Right.
And so I think many of us are on journeys like this,
Yeah.
but few of us, I think where the distinction is few people listen to the ping,
Right.
listen to the pain and say, what is that? They don't take the inner journey, what I would call the alchemist journey
Mm-hmm.
into self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they continue on the external path of validation about things and money and status and
Right.
you name it, all the I would say the proxies of wealth, the physical proxies of wealth, without ever recognizing the true divinity, like the true infinite wealth is within.
Mm-hmm. That
Go
is
ahead.
such a great point. I felt the same way as well while I was going through my journey. That you know, it's not that I was doing something wrong or while I was going through my PhD or even working for that job, but I realized like, hey, this is later on. I realized that hey, this is part of your journey. You had to go through all of these experiences to get to this point. The first time I felt it, but I didn't really heed the call during that internship and
Mm-hmm.
finally had to again a year and a half of working in that same environment. I had to remind myself, okay, this is not it. And that pain in my solar plexus had to get stronger and stronger and stronger for me to realize, okay, there is something else out there for me. And
Exactly.
and I completely agree, that's been my journey as well.
You know what I think part of the problem is that we don't recognize that the feelings emanating from us, I believe it's the language of the universe. Like, the that's how the greater expanse, or the creator of all things, or the expanse of all that is, how it communicates with us while we're in physical form. It's our feelings. It's like sensations. It's energy at its very core.
Right.
And so when we grow up and we come into these embodiments, we have all sorts of feelings and things going on within us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try really hard to explain it away,
Mm.
to rationalize it. And it's all in the context of a physical thing.
Right.
And so kind of like you had that experience in the internship, you said, I don't know if this is right for me or this isn't the end game. I remember this moment like almost like time stood still. I was an intern
Mm-hmm.
in general surgery
Mm.
and I was holding a retractor. So basically, I was standing in a place holding tension, like holding so another surgeon could have a view and operate. And that was a very typical
Mm.
role of an intern where you would be holding traction, literally like straining and holding, a tractor so someone else could actually do the surgery and operate and
Mm.
have a view and have visibility.
Right.
And so here I am holding tension. And then it occurs to me that this is not what I want to do.
Mm.
And I remember in that moment of clarity being in the next moment being overwhelmed with fear because I signed up for this, right? I
Mm.
kind of bought the farm. I was like invested.
Mm.
I didn't know how to start over. I was like, and so what did I do? I did what I always did. I rationalized it. I said, well, everyone must feel this way.
Mm.
Or internship sucks.
Mm.
Like it's
Mhm.
hard for everybody. I'm sure everybody's questioning their choices at this point.
Right.
But year after year,
Right.
I kept telling myself, I'm like, oh, finish internship, then I'll feel better. Then each year as they get more and further along, then these feelings are gonna like somehow rise up and disseminate, and it'll have all been worth it,
Right.
right?
Right.
All that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of that happening, I get to a place of going into fellowship training to do cardiac surgery
Wow.
and feeling a deepening pit of despair. Like, oh no,
Mm.
this didn't actualize me. It didn't I'm not free. In fact, I feel like almost like doomed.
Mm.
And so sometimes it takes all of that, like we get to the end of the road basically where we have no more excuses
Right.
to wake up. And I think it's because we haven't been conditioned, we haven't been trained as beings of light, of beings of energy, to even give credence to these feelings within us. We're more, I guess, like you were doing, like you explained about drinking and
Mm-hmm.
partying and distracting and numbing ourselves to it.
Yeah.
There's any number of ways that we do that. That's how we're all popular media. There's a problem. Somebody pulls out a gun or they pull out a bottle of something or they snort a line of coke.
Mm-hmm.
They never deal with what's going on within them.
Right. Yeah. They
It's
never get to the root of the issues. Always.
exactly,
Always at the surface
exactly.
level. And I've been there too. At that point in my time in my life, I was just dealing with the surface level, trying to numb that pain, like make it all go away. I don't want to feel like this anymore, but I
Mhm.
don't want to do the work to not feel like this anymore. I just want to take the shortcut.
Yeah, and it's really not even we don't even know what the work is, right? Like when you're in your unconscious state, when you're on the hamster wheel of life, when you're working to pay bills,
Mm-hmm.
do you even know the tools? Like even know the way? I remember when I came to my dark night of the soul, I believed honestly, Dr. Varun, that I have to die to
Mm-hmm.
alleviate the uh, only death could fill the void.
Mm. Wow.
That's how deep it was. I knew it. I knew it.
Mm.
And because everything that else that I had done, which seemed like I said, checked all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
If I, I believed for a moment that if that couldn't do it, then nothing could.
Right.
Especially when I believed, as that it was in my purpose becoming a doctor.
Wow. No, I said that's I think like you said, a lot of people go through that, but they don't want to go through that. and so they do everything they can to run away from it. And I'm so glad that Susan, you and myself, we were able to, really understand those feelings and do something about it, because this wasn't making us happy.
Mhm. Mhm. I just I wonder if I know you're a new parent. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm not such a new parent. I have a 12-year-old son.
Mm,
But I woke up when he was 2 years old. So, I would say for the most part of his life, he's had a semi-awakened conscious parent.
mm,
It has caused me to ask this question. Those of us that do get it, like who say, "Wait a second, those pings, those nudges, that's something for me to delve into, to go inward and to understand better." Now we are empowered to help our children, right? So we have children who have their pings, and then instead of pushing them toward the external journey of just working to pay bills or numbing their feelings, we can actually transform a new generation by doing this work early on,
mm,
transforming energies early on. And so I think there's a paradigm shift in awareness that's occurring on the planet.
mm,
And as more and more people wake up and thus have kids, then they can actually be conscious parents. And then that next generation doesn't have to suffer the same fate.
right.
Of course, you're going to work and you're going to educate, and you're going to get skills, but in this at the same time you're going to honor the feelings emanating from inside of you.
Mm,
And if we're lucky, learn how to transform them from a very early age.
mm. Yeah, that's been a good question in my life right now recently. Being a new parent is, what is conscious parenting look like for me? And how can I, and this was even before we were planning for a kid, is what work can I do at that point so that I don't pass on all of this stuff that's inside of me onto the next generation, right? Because you don't want that. All the crap that you've picked up from your life and ancestors and all of that to be passed on to the next generation. You want to break that cycle. And so my work, fortunately, began, all the meditation and all of that was about 4, 5, 6 years ago now. And so I've done some of the work to stop all of the negative aspects of me to be passed on to the next generation.
Hmm. Well, you know what? I love talking about generational energies. I believe these are ancestral energies that
Hmm.
are carried, that we all carry. So your new baby already has it, right? The embodiment of of the ancestors.
Hmm.
But I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to talk about this with you a little bit further. So hang with me, Varun.
Sounds good.
Like what you're hearing so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. How would you describe your relationship with money? Did you ever imagine that your deepest feelings and beliefs about money could be preventing you from acquiring all the wealth that you desire? Click the link below in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Nicholas's highly sought after Frequency of Money program to positively transform your relationship with money. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So, Varun, before the break, we were talking about passing on kind of our stuff to the next generation.
Mm,
And I believe it's an inevitability. I think it's just the nature of this existence. It's not right or wrong. And so I think there's some very, I would say, core concepts about energy that I think we are required to master. It's not that we don't pass on our legacy, but that we can heal it. Like we can heal it.
mhm,
And so one of the things that I feel very, very deeply about, and which is one of my, I would say, superpowers from my awakening, was the ability to see and move energy, to transform energy.
Mm,
And so one of the things that I came to understand was that all of the energy of the planet follows the same universal law of conservation. Like, it's the very first law of thermodynamics. That's energy is not created nor destroyed, but it changes state. It basically, energy is transformed.
mm-hmm,
And so we can apply that to all the energy on the planet, like whether it's solar energy, any heat, it doesn't matter, electricity. We can apply this law,
mm-hmm,
but I don't believe, Varun, we've considered the energy that is us, the energetic essence that is us, and that it too follows the same universal law of conservation. That the energies of us, those pings, those feelings, those ancestral lineages, that it can't be forgotten, it can't be rid of, it can't be, you can't go around it, you can't numb it, can't forget about it. These energies have to be transformed.
mm,
And so what I think we don't learn, I mean, one of the many things that we do not learn is that, I would say it's not even acknowledged, is that we are first energetic beings, that, and we are embodied. We are embodied beings, but the core essence of us is energy.
mm-hmm,
And that when there's something pinging us, that energy must be transformed. We can hide from it. We can try to run away from it. We can try to educate ourselves out of it. We can geographically think we can move away from stuff. But if you've noticed, wherever you go, there you are.
mm-hmm.
And so when I spoke before the break about your newborn and about carrying over the energy, I believe very fundamentally that when we are born into the universe or the multiverse, however you want to conceive it, we are born into it for a very long time. And that we incur many types of incarnations, I believe, in an effort to mature this eternal soul of ours. And so all the embodiments, all the experiences, some things from different lifetimes, just like this one, are left undone, right? Some lessons are still unlearned. And I think very fundamentally, some energies are left untransformed. And so we come into this embodiment. Yes, it's about learning about the physical properties of the world. Yes, we do have to survive our embodiment. And we have created a world that cost. So yes, we have to earn money and pay our bills. But I think fundamentally, what is missing from this equation of life is that we're also here to transform energies of our soul, of our ancestral plane. And when we do, like when you do it, when I do it, when any person who wakes up and says, wait a second, this twinge, this ping, it's speaking to me. What can I do, or what is this? Then that individual stands to transform the energy of generations forwards and backwards. So you transforming the energies of you, Varun, in turn transforms the energy of your lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for me and every person who stands up in light. And so I wanted to kind of get your take on this idea that what we're really here to do is to listen to the pings of the soul. Like, listen to the energy of us, the essence of us, and elevate our vibrational frequency.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. Uh, when I was kind of going through a lot of it, I wasn't aware that I had something to that's the and not that there was something wrong, but in essence there's something that's off and there was something that needed to be transformed, right? Like I'd gone through so many years of college and school and all of this education system, but we hadn't really learned about, oh, we are energy beings. I'd never really heard that until
Mhm.
I started meditating, and then I started reading books in this direction and, diving deeper into my spirituality. That's when I really understood the essence of who we are. I mean, we're not taught this stuff, and I feel like we need to be taught this stuff at an early age,
Mhm.
so that all of us can do this work. And hopefully, we're getting to that point of, at least the conscious parents are teaching their kids, if they're not learning in school but they're getting this knowledge elsewhere, then that's helping every generation. Like you said, all the lineages are being rewritten as the energy is being transformed. And um, and I felt that it was upon me to transform my energies before I passed it on to my
Mhm.
child. So some of the work has been done, some of the things are still coming up, and I'm like, wow, when I'm 2 a.m. and he's crying, I feel some energies inside of me that, okay, I know that I need some more transformation to happen, right? And I feel it. So now I've gotten to a place where I'm really aware of, okay, in the moment I'm feeling this, in the moment I don't want to feel like this. So let me work on transforming this energy. It may not happen at this instance, but I know that there's this work that
Mhm.
needs to be done. And so
Mm.
every time I'm feeling that, I'm working on the transformation and, transmuting that energy into its opposite, or into the positive element.
Mm.
And that's been the work for me. It's getting to the moment where I can be as present as possible in this moment, so that when I'm going through the fear, when I'm going through all of that pain, that suffering, that anxiety, when I'm creating these stories in my mind, I am aware of it and I can transmute that in the direction that I want to go in. Because that fear, more likely than not, that anxiety, more likely than not, is not really helping you in any which way, especially in this modern life that we're in. Maybe back in the day when you felt fear, yeah, that meant something real, a real present danger. But at this moment in time, there are very few occasions for that to be actually happening. And so that irrational fear, whenever it comes up, like I'll give you an example. Let's say this year, 2022, has been a really great year for actualizing, my expression. And so I've been speaking to all of these different podcasts, getting interviewed by different folks. One of the greatest challenges, even though I've gone on presented in national conferences, has been speaking in front of people, large audiences. What would happen for me is I would get so conscious that my conscious mind would actually go for a hike, and I wouldn't be able to logically or come up with an answer. Like, for example, after the presentation's over, I get a great question. I'm not able to logically think through an answer because my conscious mind is not there, and it's all of my the subconscious nature that's coming out. And so whatever comes out, I would just blurt it out. And a lot of the times, I'd feel like a bumbling idiot. Oh, I wasn't able to answer this question properly. And so the work that I've done in the last year or so, especially 2022, has been, hey, let me put myself out there into these situations where I feel uncomfortable, so that when I'm in these situations that I'm feeling uncomfortable, I can put myself at ease and continue doing that in every of these situations. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm able to express myself openly on a podcast like this, and not have sweat rolling down my sleeve, and not be able to come up with a meaningful response to any of these questions.
Mm. Mm. I understand you. Yeah, I also have gone on the speaking journey too, and know exactly how that feels. Can you tell us, Varun, you said that you're creating a program about what's your life, or um, can you tell us about that and how it fits into your soul work?
Yeah, one of the things that I've understood, and my engineering mind has kind of broken this down into this program called "What's Your Story?" And essentially, what this is understanding that, it took me a lot of meditation, it took me a lot of reading other resources, materials out there, to realize that at every moment in my life, I've been creating a story in my mind. The way I perceive a particular situation may be different from the way you perceive that same situation based on our past experiences, based on all of those defining moments in our lives. And this meaning that we bring to each and every situation is personal, is individual, meaning I have the power to change that story for how I understand my world, how I understand my life. If I pay attention to my story, because at some point
Mhm.
this story creation was so quick. I didn't realize I was doing this. It
Mhm.
happened so automatically. And finally, after years of meditation, I've been able to get to the point of really slowing things down and creating the meaning in the moment, as opposed to allowing some other external force to create that meaning for me, create that story for me. And
Mhm.
so I've realized that, look, I can slow things down and actually select the story that's going to get me in the direction that I want to go in. And I wanted to pass this message on to people to give them an understanding of how they can change their life by paying attention to the stories that they're creating in their life. So the one thing
Mm.
that we created, the one tool, I call it the My Life film. And essentially, uh, this is a life chart. You're charting out from the moment you were born all of those moments, those positive moments, those negative moments, all of those moments in your life that have affected you and made you into who you are today. We have all of these negative moments that give us certain thoughts, certain beliefs that push us down a particular direction that may not be in our best interest. Well, this tool will allow us to go into our lives and slowly break down and understand all of those defining moments. And once we have those moments down, now we're going to do the introspection part, understand how each of these moments has affected us in our life, how each of these moments have made us into who we are today. And the parts, that the aspects of ourselves that we don't want to carry forward, well, it is in these defining moments we can uncover these aspects of ourselves, really understand where did this thought process, where did this behavior, where did this energy enter my life, and find ways to change our relationship to those past moments. And so once we understand what our relationship is with each of those past moments and realize that this is not helping us in in the grand scheme of things, now I can actively work on changing my relationship so that that past moment has I have a different experience of that past moment in the present time. So that's what this My Life film does. Essentially charts out your memories, your experiences, your defining moments that have left an impression on you, and you learn the lessons that we're meant to learn. Because in my life, I never really had this opportunity to have a course or have a set program where I was able to understand my life in a deeper level. It took
Mhm.
me going through meditation, really sitting down with myself, going through hours of meditation. There was a point in my life where I was meditating like a 9 to 5 job, and and that helped me really slow things down and understand that I am creating this story, and it's in my own hands, that I have the power to create a new future story through all of these different
Mhm.
tools that are already available to us. And that's
Hmm.
what this course is about.
That's very interesting because one of the things that I've come to understand through my awakening experiences is that we are all creators, that we actually create our own life. I mean,
Hmm.
this isn't new thought. There's been existentialist thought, whether it's spiritual or secular or religious type of existentialism that describes this idea. I mean, from Nietzsche to Albert Einstein, different people say, "Yeah, you create your own life."
Mm-hmm.
And so we hear that, but we don't own it. Like we don't own that we are creators, that we actually speak our life into creation.
Mm-hmm.
We think it, we believe it.
Hmm.
We act and do things. We make choices that create our reality.
Right.
And so we've always been the orchestrator of our own lives.
Hmm.
I mean, even there are times that we were disempowered in that orchestration,
Right.
meaning that things our story was first told to us and handed down to us
Mm-hmm.
from our ancestors, and we ate it all up. We accepted it, and until we get to a certain level, I believe, of awareness, maybe of maturity, where we start to say, wait a second, the story that I've been told, I don't believe it, or it's not serving me any longer.
Yeah.
Kind of just like that fear that you said back in the day. Yeah, you had to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But question, is that even true? Because there's a distinction to be made between fear and danger, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we are embodied, and yes, the idea is that you protect your embodiment. And so there are some things that are harmful to your embodiment that will create your demise, your physical demise.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, those things we consider dangerous.
Right.
But what you're alluding to in our present moment is that those near and present dangers are fewer and far in between in the lives and the comfort and the protections we've created, our homes and our security and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always have this near and present danger so much, like we're not going to be eaten by a lion,
Right.
but we have we still have fears. And some of those fears are irrational fears or phobias by just by definition. We're afraid of often the future because it remains unknown to us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're afraid of the feelings in us. What will happen if they are known or if they are expressed. So we have fears of different types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of death, of the physical self, is a big one for many people. And so, yeah, I think there's a part of rewriting our story so we can overcome the things that are no longer serving us.
Right.
And so I believe that truly, Varun, the only meaning that anything at all has is the meaning that we give to it, the
Yes.
meaning that we assign to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we begin to recognize the power that we have within ourselves to create our own lives, that we, in fact, are the creators of our own realities, we all do it with the choices too numerous to count that we make in our everyday existence.
Mm-hmm.
We're choosing all of this stuff, even if we're doing it unconsciously, as you alluded to.
Right.
That once we take ownership of that, then as creators, we must take responsibility for what we have created. And I think maybe that's what holds many of us back from doing this inner work, this introspective work, because you recognize how powerful you are as a creator and all that you created in this world. And then you must own it and take responsibility and then change what you're creating for your future.
That's a huge responsibility, huh?
It is, but each of us can take that responsibility in our little lives, like in our own lives, in our everyday choices. We can recognize that when there's something, I think we find it very easy to accept our power when it's things that we like, and things happen that I feel good about. But we find it more difficult to accept the responsibility when there's an outcome that we don't like. We don't like that or we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are master creators of exactly that which we do not want because we're so used to it, right? We're so used to, we're so used to saying things that we don't want. Like, how many of us say, oh, I don't want to be in pain,
Right.
or I don't want this, or I don't want, and we start out manifesting everything that we do not want
Right.
instead of honoring the power that's of our language, how we speak, that we speak that into creation.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is.
Like, I don't want this, I don't want that. And then it shows up and you're just like, I knew it. I knew it.
Right.
I knew that's how it would happen.
Yep. Not knowing that we have been creating it all along.
That you created it all along.
Yeah. Yeah. Some
Yeah,
people are so scared of their own creation that they don't want to acknowledge that they created their own creation.
exactly.
And I was there at some
Exactly.
point in my life as well, right? I was like, oh wow, I did this, I created this mess. I don't want to take that responsibility.
Did you see the movie Soul on Disney Pixar?
Yes, such a great movie.
So one of my favorite lines in that movie is when the main character is viewing his life and he sees like the Bananka spray and the uh, break dancing stuff. And he said, "Who curated this exhibit?" And 22 looked sideways and said, "You did." And to me, that is like the crux of all of this. It's like, you created this. You might not like it,
Yeah,
but you, in fact, curated your own life.
yeah, yeah. And it's, I think when people realize that, that's such a powerful realization
Yes.
people to have.
Yes, it is.
It wasn't my life.
Well, Dr. Varun, it has been a great pleasure speaking with you. Can you tell our guests where they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, that's drvarungandhi.com, or Instagram with the same name, Dr. Varun Gandhi. Thank you.
I want to thank you for taking this inner journey with us today. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious. Now, if you love this episode and if today's message resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and review the Be Conscious podcast. I want to know what inspired you and what conscious topics you would like to hear more about. And if you want, you can share those thoughts and questions with me at info@susannicholas.org.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.